Ken, Logan, great to have both of you here in studio. Of course, the kickoff to season 3 of The Goldin Touch. And talk a little bit about just the process of filming this series for Netflix. Of course, alongside Logan Paul, who appears in at least 2 or 3 of those episodes here.
Oh, look, I love the show. You know, King of Collectibles, The Goldin Touch. This is our 3rd season, launched today. It's, you know, takes you into the incredible world of collectibles, the value of the items, the history behind it, the story of the chase, the excitement, and also the personalities that collect the items, that buy the items, and you know, why collectibles are so incredibly important. It's a fast-paced show, and I love doing it. I hope I'm doing it 10 years from now.
When you talk about personalities, no one's a bigger personality than Logan Paul. You seem to be clutching your chest right now. Is that because you're wearing a very expensive jacket?
Yeah, well, yeah, the jacket is expensive, but that's neither here nor there. No, it's because I have the most expensive Pokemon card around my neck, and let's see it. Superman.
Oh my God.
The one-of-one PSA 10 Pikachu illustrator that is on season 3 of Ken's show.
The most coveted card in the world.
Absolutely. So those folks who aren't Pokemon experts, I mean, you famously bought this card back in 2021, the most expensive one ever. And this is a rarity. I mean, these cards weren't really sold. They were just kind of given out, right? And at some point, you managed to get a hold of one of the few, not only just intact ones, but I'm pretty sure this is the highest rated one out there, too.
Yeah, it's the only one in the world. It's a PSA 10, meaning it's perfect.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's one of one. Like you said, it was one of 39 copies handed out in 1998 for a Pokemon illustration contest. So this card couldn't be bought. It was earned, which is part of the reason why the lore contributes to such a high value for the card.
When you paid what, by most reports, it's upwards of $5 million for this. There are a lot of people that said you're an idiot.
Yes.
Like, what is he doing? Who would pay that much for a card? Now, I'm told that you're actually willing to put this back onto the market. You think you're going to get more than the $5.3 million that you paid for it?
Look, that's honestly always the goal, right? But I actually say willing isn't a great word. I had to be convinced to put this card at auction. Ken has chased me for years trying to convince me to sell the card. And let's be honest, the Pokemon market is as hot as it's ever been right now. And those people who thought I was an idiot, I think I'm the one laughing in their face now, because Pokemon has delivered higher returns than the stock market in the past 20 years by upwards of 3,000%. And so while I think this will probably go for more than I bought it for, it's an auction, but it is the best card in the world. There's nothing like it. And it's a piece of history now. I wore it out to my WrestleMania debut. It's on Ken's Netflix show, and I think we're excited to see what it can go for.
And it's funny you bring it up when we talk about this idea of collecting. Just let's start with art, right? That was what, if you had a lot of money, you bought your Monets, your Jackson Pollocks, things like that. There was sort of this wave a few years ago of this younger generation coming in, Ken, as you know, that were much more interested in things like Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering cards, sports memorabilia. And a lot of people kind of scratch their heads, what's that really worth? Comic books, you know, hip-hop memorabilia. It's really expanded. Talk about how that's expanded your business away from the more traditional collectibles that we think about.
Sure. What you have to realize is that collectibles as a category right now is an asset class. It is an alternative asset class. And while maybe in 100 years ago and also in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you know, collecting art, whether it was Picasso, whether it was Renoir, whether it was Monet, Warhol, to go more recent, you know, was what the quote super rich did, and that was the traditional collectibles. You know, people who, you know, grew up worshiping athletes, and people, you know, a little younger than me who grew up on Pokemon, which has its 30th anniversary, in February this year, you know, they did not grow up, you know, dreaming about owning a big art collection. And as they get into their 30s and 40s and 50s and late 20s, they have a lot of money. So to them, owning the best of the best, whether it's a Pokemon card, whether it's a game-used jersey, whether it's a sports card, that is what they aspire to be. And that is how we can see something like a basketball card with pictures of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant sell for $12.5 million. That's how we can see a jersey worn by Babe Ruth sell for $24 million. That's how I can sell a baseball that was hit by Shohei Ohtani for $4.4 million, and that's how we can see, you know, the Pokemon illustrator, the single best card out of the entire Pokemon genre, which is the world's biggest franchise, sell for 8 figures.
But there's also added value to it as well. Obviously, the card in and of itself has value, but the fact that it's associated with someone like Logan Paul, you have a celebrity. I mean, there's rarity, as you know, in the collectibles market that drives price. And you talk about you wearing it in your WWE debut and the other facts. I mean, that has to add to the value, right? Not only that am I going to get this illustrator card, but I'm going to get the illustrator card that was once owned by Logan Paul.
We will see. I would certainly think, right? But the card's only worth what someone is willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
Like Ken said, Pokemon is the highest grossing, most popular franchise in the world. It's a Guinness World Record setting card as well at this point. So it has the lore, it has the story. It does have all of the ingredients, include the actual substance of the card itself, to potentially sell for 8 figures, like Ken said. But you know, we'll see what people are willing to pay for it.
I would also like to point out most people don't wear 8 figures around their neck. Is the framing and the chain, does that come with it, or is it just does it?
Yeah, and I asked Ken if I could do it. I want to hand deliver it to the buyer, because when I bought this card from the guy who I chased it down for years, he was in Dubai, and he made it an experience for me, and it contributed to how I felt about the card. And so for whoever buys it, I would like to reciprocate that and make it an experience for them as well by delivering it myself.
Logan, talk about some of the other things that you've bought, collectibles that you've bought. And I am curious also, how do you make sure that what you're getting is authentic, that you don't sort of get taken by somebody trying to pawn something off on you?
Well, actually, I've bought a decent amount from Goldin auctions, and the goal there is that auction houses have a reputation, and that reputation hopefully means that the items you're buying from them is authentic. So the authenticity is kind of like a check when I buy most of these items. But man, I'm a collector of all sorts of things. I have Michael Jordan Fleer rookie in PSA 10. I have Erling Haaland's 1/1 Superfractor. I got a Wayne Gretzky's last championship game hockey stick for $336,000. I bought a meteorite older than the Earth, 4.5 billion years old, for like $80,000. Cave bears, a dinosaur skull, a triceratops skull in my living room.
Bob Ross painting.
A Bob Ross painting. Like, dude, I love collectibles because they mean something to me. They're an art piece, and hopefully they appreciate and value because it's part of this strategic asset class that I think people are now finally becoming aware of.
And so, Ken, talk about that asset class. I mean, we're talking about a market now, the broader
100%.
collectibles market. If you just take traditional art out of it, you're talking about a few $100 billion now. And it gets to this idea of what comes next. I mean, what do you think that next generation are going to be chasing after? Because I assume it's going to be something maybe a little bit different.
Sure. I mean, look, I think, and as far as sports cards, what I tell people is, you know, professional baseball has been around since the 1860s, and baseball cards have been around since the 1860s. So I think the traditional stuff like trading cards of all genres, you know, is certainly going to continue to only rise in popularity, especially when you have some of the larger companies like PSA and Fanatics with, you know, billions of dollars invested in the industry and athletes getting into it. You know, anything can really become a collectible. And to me, you know, just because I don't collect what somebody else collects doesn't mean it's not a collectible. For example, we had our first ever rock and roll and hip hop auction. We set records. I mean, whether it was Tupac, whether it was Nirvana, whether it was Guns N' Roses, the stuff was going for absolutely Eminem, crazy prices. And for albums and for graded albums. And what really made the trading card market take off is when the grading companies came in, and now there are companies that grade, you know, cassettes and albums and CDs, and the market's taking off.
And it's funny you mentioned, I mean, the hip hop auction was big, and as somebody who collects a lot of stuff from hip hop, a lot of that stuff was seen as worthless just a few years ago, and now you have, I think it was Christie's or Sotheby's doing their own sort of hip hop auctions. But it gets to this idea, and I want to get to this idea with you, Logan, the idea of kind of being an outsider. I mean, your fame and your celebrity did not go through the traditional path. Obviously, you with Vine and YouTube, and eventually with wrestling and all the other ventures that you have here. And I do wonder if that parallels kind of what we're seeing also in collectibles, where you have people just saying, no, we don't need to do it the old-fashioned way in terms of, you know, what we collect and how.
It's true. I mean, collecting's nice because if you're passionate about something or even just care a little bit, you can make a foray into the hobby. Like, dude, I started collecting rocks when I was a kid, and then it moved to coins, and then it graduated to footballs. And my interests have changed, and I made a lot of money, and I spent it on cardboard. And like you said, some people laughed at me at the time. But collecting's nice because like you don't need a credential to start. You can just buy things that interest you, and like I said, the goal is always that they appreciate and value.
All right, season 3 is out now, or coming out now. What else is next for you and Logan?
Well, we have as people will find out by watching the show, we have planned together what we believe will be the biggest TCG trading card game auction in history.
Okay.
The illustrator is going to be the anchor, and there's going to be millions and millions and millions of other dollars, of other items, Pokémon, Magic the Gathering, and similar items. And we're going to have the auction is going to launch in January. It's going to close February 15th, and timing it for the 30th anniversary of Pokémon. And that's something that, we're looking, my worst case scenario on that is 15 million. I'd love to do a 25 or 30 million dollar auction with that. And that's really, to me, a big event for the industry. I can tell you what's happening for the industry right now. Over the past 6 weeks, I've been contacted by multiple firms that are either in existence or just starting up or want to start up to have, basically funds dedicated to collectibles.
When you say funds, like
a gold fund or a crypto fund, but a collectible fund. And whether it's $50 million or $250 million.
Why haven't we seen that? I mean, or something like even an ETF or something.
Well, that's exactly what people are looking to do for now. There is one company out there that is doing it. They're doing it solely with basketball cards. These people want to do a more broader basket, and as probably hobby-wise the most well-known guy, they're coming to me and asking for advice. But I think that is really going to take the market to the next level.
And you think that's possible? I mean, with regards to the regulations, you think they would sign off on it?
There's one successful fund that's operating right now, and but it's very private, very closely held.
Sure.
But I do think that there's so much opportunity. I expect that to happen.